early days. This global war was the first alien war on planet Earth, but it was definitely not the last. The opponents in this 65-million-year-old war were two advanced alien species. One race was humanoid like your species, but much older, and was from this universe, from a solar system in the star constellation you call Procyon. The other species, about which we do not know so much, was a reptilian species, but they have nothing to do with our own species because we have evolved from local saurians without exterior influence. The advanced reptilian species came not from this universe, but from, well, how should I explain it to you? Your scientists have not really understood the true nature of the universe because your illogical mind is not able to see the easiest things and relies on wrong mathematics and numbers. Let me say that you are nearly as far away from understanding the universe as you were 500 years ago. To use a term you will maybe understand, the other species came not from this universe, but from another bubble in the foam of the omniverse. You would call it maybe another dimension. The fact you should remember is that advanced species are able to walk between bubbles by use of, as you would call it, quantum technology, and sometimes in special ways only by use of their mind. She then goes on to describe how these two species were apparently on Earth to get copper, of all things. These two races tried to communicate peacefully but were not successful, and a global war started within months. She says the humanoid species seemed to be successful during the first time, but in the last battle the reptilians decided to use a mighty experimental weapon, a special kind of fusion bomb which should destroy the life forms on the planet, but should not harm the valuable raw materials and the copper. The bomb was fired from space and detonated at a point of your planet you call Middle America. As it detonated in the ocean, it produced an unpredictable fusion with hydrogen, and the effect was much stronger than the reptilians had expected. A deadly radiation, an overproduction of fusion oxygen, and a fallout of different elements in a nuclear winter lasted for nearly 200 years. Most of the humanoids were killed, and the reptilians lost their interest on the planet after some years. Planet Earth was on its own again, and the animals on the surface died. Nearly all dinosaurs and reptilians were dead within the next 20 years. Some of them, especially those in the oceans, were able to survive for the next 200 to 300 years. But these species also died because the climate had changed. The nuclear winter ended after 200 years, but it was colder on Earth than before. Despite the cataclysm, some species were able to survive: fish, birds, mammals, various reptiles like crocodiles. And there was a special kind of small but advanced dinosaur which had developed together with the last large animal reptilians like the species you called Tyrannosaurus. Now she continues to say that this was basically their ancestors and they evolved from this, I guess, iguanodon type dinosaur to become the species today. And here's a really interesting part she reveals for humans. She says around 1.5 million years ago, another alien species arrived on Earth. She adds it was surprisingly the first species for over 60 million years, and this would be more surprising for you if you were to know how many different species are here today. She says the interest of this humanoid species, you call them Elohim today, was not the raw material and the copper. It was, to our astonishment, the unadvanced ape humanoids. Despite our presence on the planet, the aliens decided to help the apes evolve a little bit faster, to serve them in the future as some kind of slave race in coming wars. The fate of your species was not really important for us, but we didn't like the presence of this Elohim on our planet, and they didn't like our presence in their new galactic zoo. So your 6th and 7th creation was the reason for a war between us and them. You can read about that war partly in the book you call the Bible, in a very strange way of description. The real truth is a very long and difficult story. And the interviewer then asks her not to continue and wanted to ask some specific questions. One of those is, how many alien species are active on Earth at the moment? And Lacerta answers, as far as we know, 14 species, 11 from this universe and 2 from another dimension, and 1 very advanced from a very different plane. Don't ask me for names because nearly all are not pronounceable for you. 8 of them are not pronounceable even for us. Most of the species, especially the more advanced, are just studying you as animals, and they are not very dangerous to you or to us, and we work together with some of them. 3 species are hostile, including the one which was in contact with your governments and has exchanged their technology for important things and which has betrayed your kind. There was and is a a cold war between two of these hostile races during the last 73 years, and the third species seems to be the winner in this useless struggle. Then she gets asked, what do the hostile alien races want? And she answers various raw materials, including copper for their technology, your water, and certain chemical elements in your air. Furthermore, two of the species are also interested in your body, in your human tissue and blood, because their own genetic structure is defective through bad evolution and radiation, and they need intact strings from your kind and from animals to repair their own genetics again and again. They aren't able to fully repair the defects completely because their DNA and your DNA is not fully compatible. And they try to make more compatible crossbreeds between you and them by use of artificial fertilizations and artificial wombs. We suppose that the coming war between the three races, or between you and one or all of them, will be fought for raw material, hydrogen, air, and your DNA. So I'll leave that with you. If I read any more, it would take up a whole episode. It's a huge transcript. And in the second interview, there's actually two of them. It gets really interesting because the interviewer shows her some photos of UFOs, and she allegedly is able to determine whether they're real or fake, and goes on to talk about how a lot of the UFO sightings are in fact secret military projects from the US. And I thought it was interesting how she said in that interview how they're a completely different species to some of the other reptilians that are allegedly sighted in UFO abductions, and especially in UFO lore, there's an association between the Greys and the reptilians. So it all makes it very confusing, but an entertaining read as always, and I thought it was a while since we had something really, really out there to include in the show. And it's true that these stories really do capture everyone's imagination. I mean, Chernivog just posted a few hours ago a few articles on Phil Schneider, who claimed to be one of the engineers working on the alleged Dulce base and had a bit of a scrap with the Greys in the 70s. And that particular post has already got 7 comments on the site. It's only been up for a couple of hours. So as I said, these stories are always fun despite how questionable they are. I'll put the links up to that interview in the show notes at mysteriousuniverse.org, where you can read the full transcripts of the interview with the reptilian Lacerta.